Thank you so much for being here. Lots we want to discuss. Want to get your take on just the ecosystem currently and maybe your thoughts on how the climate is looking right now. I know it's been challenging. And of course, we want to get into Wattpad. So why don't we start from the beginning with maybe just prior to Wattpad and your journey. So quite a bit of experience. You started your career at Delrina, huge Toronto success story. And then Tira Wireless, you also co-founded that with your co-founder, Matt Golden. So what were some of the big takeaways from those experiences, and how did that maybe lead you to Wattpad and to the journey there?
Yeah, maybe give this group a little bit more context. Delrina was one of the original Toronto success stories. It was, by the time it was sold, it was $500 million. It was in '95. It was the top 10 largest PC software companies in the world. And above that, it was the Microsoft, Adobe of the world. So it was a very amazing story. But anyway, let me get to how I started there. Fresh out of school, my girlfriend, now my wife, I work for her at the time already. So anyway, we graduated at the same time. She joined Delrina. I joined the building next door in a company called IBM. And then she was looking at me. I was so depressed, and she was so excited about the opportunity. So she dragged me into Delrina. By the time she joined, it was a 20-person company. By the time I joined, 9 months later, it was 100 people. By the time the company was sold, 3 years later, it was 700, 800 people. So it was the fastest rocket ship one can ever imagine. I guess the two takeaways from this experience is when you are on a rocket ship, don't ask for a seat number, just go. And you can learn so much. I spent, before the acquisition, I spent 3 years, 4 years there. I do feel like I learned like 20 years, 30 years worth of experience within those 1,000 days, because it was just so intense. And I was also doing something unusual. After I left, after the acquisition, I stayed on for maybe 3, 4 more years. Many people said, well, the company is not the same, culture has changed, everything has changed. But I stayed on, and I was still very young, and I was able to learn how to operate, how to lead, how to manage in mid-sized company. It was acquired by Symantec. It was a 3,000-person company. So everything was different. But that skill, I cannot tell you how much it helped me. 20 years later, when I was scaling Wattpad, okay, I saw this problem before. And that was so, so, so useful.
I love that. And I love when you're going to the moon, you don't ask for a seat number. You're just along for the ride. So I think that's really great advice and really good takeaway. To segue more into just Wattpad, and I know you touched on, there was a lot of things you brought obviously with you into scaling that. So maybe to start with those who might not be familiar with Wattpad and how you built the business, maybe you can just touch on that a little bit and just how the journey was building Wattpad.
I'll give you the 30-second, 1-minute elevator pitch. The starting point was based on 2 ideas. We believe people would be reading more on the devices that they carry all the time, and also mobile internet would allow the content to be coming down from the cloud to the mobile device. So these 2 things was the foundation, and also the user-generated content as well, maybe 3 things. Started in 2006 when a year before the iPhone came out, a year before Kindle came out, Facebook was started with 50 people. So all these things that I talk about, mobile internet as well as social was brand new at that time. And then fast forward 15 years later, the company, if I was telling you what the company does, Wattpad is online platform for people to read and share stories from science fiction to romance and everything in between. We have over, close to 100 million monthly users, of which 5 million are writers, and they share 1 million new chapters in 50 languages every day. And based on data, and of course the amazing content on the platform, with take the best one and turn them into TV shows and movies and print books. At this moment, we have 100 projects that we're working on simultaneously on 5 continents with co-producing with Netflix and Disney and other entertainment companies.
That's incredible. That's amazing. Thank you for just sharing a little bit more of that context. So I want to touch on the acquisition, which I know a lot of people are really excited to hear about that. So one of the largest tech exits in the country. How did you make it happen? I think that's the question on everyone's mind. Did you ever consider raising another round? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think ironically, to make it happen, you actually don't make it happen. What I mean by that is, I'll come back to this point later, but I want you to remember the key word, optionality. Because we have all 4 options in front of us when we think about what's the next step of the company. It was in the second half of 2020. We were so close to be profitable, so we could go on, without raising another round. But would that be the right option? I don't know, because we just launched the movie business. Is doing really well, but movie is a very expensive business. So having another $100 million in funding would be very, very good. But the pref stack would be like so high. I don't know how many billions we have to IPO or sell for the company before we get any return. And then the third option, of course, IPO. Our top line and bottom line, they are very good. They were very good. So we were considering that as well. And because we have all these options, people are knocking on our door, and there was an inbound acquisition offer came, and then, okay, well, let's see how it goes. Maybe we should run the process and see if we can generate a good outcome. If not, we can go back to our desk and continue to work. And we started the process, and before you know, the process was actually very intense. Perhaps I'll share this on another day. But at the end, we sold the company for $660 million US.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, wow. Yeah. So something that I think is key for a lot of founders to know, and something that we also want the community to know, is going in, you have a vision and you have an understanding of what you want the legacy of your business and your company to be. So what is that legacy that you want for Wattpad?
Yeah, I think if you're talking about the Wattpad legacy, I think for those who have worked at Wattpad, there are a few here, you would say it's an amazing culture, amazing company. You learn so much from everyone, and there's such a great environment for you to spend a lot of time on. I think that's one of the legacies. The other one I would say is running a consumer internet company is very difficult because the consumer tastes, they change every 2 milliseconds, right? And we could build a consumer internet franchise that is still growing very strongly 15 years after we started. You are not going to see that many companies or consumer internet companies that could do that. Of course, Google, Facebook, they could do that, but it's harder than you may think. But I would highlight one thing that I think this group would find this inspiring, perhaps. When we were raising our Series B, it was more than 10 years ago. At that time, if you want to raise a large round, you have to go to the Valley. Not only you have to go there, you have to move there, you have to move your headquarters there, you have to move your entire life, unplug here and go there. That's the norm. People don't ask for other options. And I don't think that's the answer, and I truly, truly believe that. And when I talk to VCs, then they didn't ask me, hey, Alan, are you going to come to the Valley? They asked me, when are you coming to the Valley? I said, no. If you want to, in a very polite way, I don't want to sound like too arrogant, but the undertone is, if you want to invest in Wattpad, and I want you to invest in Wattpad, you come to Toronto. I'm not going to move. I want to build this company here. I believe this is the best place to build a tech company. And I did not just say this, I actually eat my own dog food, and even today, I did not have a single staff in the Valley. So, before I sold the company, I don't know this anymore. I guess the point is, aim for the impossible. You can always raise the bar. Not because, don't look back, don't look at someone who did it, and just use that as the benchmark. Think about how you can raise the bar and do the impossible.
That's some great advice. And I wanted to ask you about maybe why you felt so strongly about wanting to be here, so I'm really glad you were able to touch on that for everyone. So take notes, everyone. Hold your ground and shoot for the impossible. I love that. I want to segue now into what you're doing now, seeing as how you have stepped aside from the CEO duties in relation to Wattpad. So I want to chat about Two Small Fish Ventures and what you're doing there. So, tell us what you're doing now and how you're continuing to support the great ecosystem with that.
Yeah, Two Small Fish Ventures started with my wife Eva 8 years ago for two reasons. Number one, I believe building Wattpad, we gained a lot of amazing experience, a lot of learnings that I want to share this. And one of the reasons why I stick to Toronto is because I believe we could build a much larger ecosystem here. Of course, I'm not saying Wattpad is the only company, Ecobee and many other companies, they were part of that journey to help build this amazing ecosystem to what you see today. But one of the main reasons Silicon Valley could become where they are today is because the entrepreneurs, when they're done, when they sold the last company or IPO, and they all became venture capitalists. And that's how they recycle the capital, recycle the knowledge, recycle the know-how. And guess what? We didn't do it in Canada. And I think that's a big gap that is missing. So that's why, one of the reasons why we started Two Small Fish Ventures. And now 8 years later, I'm done. I don't want to start another company. I feel like it's kind of repetitive if I want to do it again. So I want to do something new and be a full-time investor. And I find this very, very challenging. I find a lot of joy in it. I get the same adrenaline rush, but just in a very different and intense way, and I'm very happy about this.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. A couple of final questions to wrap up, because we do want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. The tech climate recently, arguably the last few years, has changed significantly and has been difficult to navigate. So what's your view on how things are looking? What's your perspective? Is there any advice you might have?
A tiny little company started maybe a year before the dot-com crash. I think they went through the funding valley in the turn of the century, and went IPO in 2004. And that company, of course, is Google. If you look at 2008, of course, funding completely stopped for maybe a year, maybe even more. But what came out of that? Twitter, Instagram, and I can name quite a few others. We have to remember the economy, including the tech economy, including the tech ecosystem. It's cyclical. There will be peaks, there will be valleys. I truly don't believe everything that has been or should be invented has been invented, right? So there will be new product companies. There will be new tech companies. And there are quite a few emerging trends, like generative AI, like Web3, for example. And these two requires a lot of consumer computing power. And I don't think the current system, where the hardware and software can actually support that. So there's a lot of innovation to be done, and these three technologies, and there are more, these three mega trends, they can completely change the way how things work that weren't possible before. And I think we are back to the early 2010, 2008, 2012 timeframe where mobile was emerging, social was emerging, cloud computing was emerging. And of course, these are all, so yesterday now, but remember, there was a lot of growth in the past 10 years, and we are expecting to see the same thing in the coming 10 years.
Right, there's still a lot more ideas out there that can be shared. You said, generative AI, things that are kind of exciting you in the trends that you're seeing. Is there anything you would want to see created or a gap that you could see being filled, something that would be interesting that someone should consider or want to learn more about?
Yeah, I think when I first saw generative AI, it was maybe 5-6 years ago. I was looking at OpenAI when Bino Khosla, one of our Wattpad investors, told me, hey, we just, Khosla Ventures just invested in OpenAI, and look at this, you don't need any writers anymore, The OpenAI code can generate the writing for you. I told him, no, we have millions of writers. I think this is a very important piece of technology, but it's not necessarily applicable to Wattpad. But it doesn't mean I don't buy into the technology. It's actually very, very amazing, as you probably have seen. So how people write, the publishing industry can be completely disrupted again after Kindle disrupted that and Wattpad disrupted that. In the past 10 years, there's another wave of disruption. I can say the same thing for movies. Making movies would be very, very different because of this. Marketing tech. How much time you have to spend on Adobe? Probably type a sentence and boom, the asset is generated. And I can name 10 other examples. So I think we are not even seeing the applications yet. The foundational technology is so new, it will take a couple of more years at least, and then some of the amazing applications will emerge.
And lastly, just before we get some questions from the audience, where can people learn about your new ventures and connect with you if they want to chat more about any ideas?
Yeah, we invest in early stage, seed-stage tech companies, mostly software, but we also invested in a company that create IPs for 3D chips, 3D semiconductor. Another company is like using AI to help mining companies to find gold, and they just found 40 ounces of gold in Kazakhstan. Using their technology otherwise would be buried underground forever. And these are the very, very transformative technologies or products that we are looking at that could achieve things that weren't possible before. So I'm the easiest person to find on the internet, alan@twosmallfish.vc. Just shoot me an email and we can talk.
Awesome. Third time joining us at TechTO, I believe the second time in person. It's great to have you back. So quick round of applause for Alan before we take some questions. Thank you so much.
Stay on stage. We have a couple
Alan,
questions.
stay on stage and we'll run the
While I'm
next
waiting for
round.
Jason to grab his mic, I'll ask the first question. You quickly mentioned pref stack when raising. For people that don't know what that is, can you explain what that is and why that's important?
Yeah, when the investors invest in your company, you still own the common shares, but the investors would own the preferred shares. There are 50 shades of preferred shares, but the simplest form is the investor would guarantee they get the money back first. So if you raise $100 million, and if you sold the company for $99 million, the 99 would go to the investor first. Right? If you sold the company for 101, then the 100 goes to the investor, the 1 goes to you. It's only fair because they have to protect the principal. They put in real money first. So the more you raise, it sounds good, but you have to IPO or sell your company for a much higher price before you as a founder or employee, your option would be worth anything.
Okay, a question back there. Okay.
Hi, my name is Dimitri. I'm founder of Deskry, and we're a no-code backend for any app under 10 minutes. I want to ask you a question. So, you as a startup founder and now a VC, so how, how your perspective has changed between those two roles and the way you view other companies and startups, and especially like as a VC, what you're looking for and in the startups, being a startup before.
Yeah, I think I have a whole lot more empathy on VCs now. It's actually a very difficult and challenging job. Very hard to find the best deals, right? Because like the two small fish portfolio, we just first closed our fund, $30 million US dollars, and we invest in only 20 companies. We hear the pitches 800 times per year. And so I have to say no about roughly 795 times. And that's a very difficult job. How do you find that 5 per year from that 800? Easier said than done. So I think to answer your question about what VCs are looking for, there are so many different types of VCs out there. Some, they want to index the market. They write smaller checks, but they have a larger portfolio. Some are only invest in Canadian founders or some Canadian ties, like Alex Fund. We are a little bit different. We live here, but if you are a European company, we hear you pitch too, even though my network is mostly North America. But one thing very important for us is transformative. Whether your product or your technology can change the behavior, whether it's consumer or enterprise, that can do things that were not possible before. But with what you're building can completely disrupt that, change that. That's the million-dollar question we ask every single day.
One last question.
Okay.
Hi, Alan. Thanks so much for that. My name is Vivek Chandra, and I advise a whole bunch of startups. The bit of wisdom I would like you to just elaborate on is that you talked about these 3 areas which you see as being truly transformative. So you briefly talked about generative AI. Would you mind just talking about the other 2 areas in case I missed it or the audience missed it, and just put some more color around that? Thank you.
In addition to generative AI is Web3, and the third one, I don't really have a term, but I'll come back to this later. The second one is Web3. Everybody knows, I presume, but specifically, I'm not talking about crypto. There's a lot of misunderstanding that these two are interchangeable, but they are not. For example, we just invested in a company unannounced, so I cannot talk about what this company does. It's a Web3 company, completely changes the way that vertical works. The stakeholders in that vertical, because of Web3, they can share the upside, share the benefits very differently than Web2. I can say more, but this is the type of stuff that is exciting. I think we are going through a crypto winter right now, but Web3 is more than crypto. Crypto is only one application using on top of Web3. I think there are many other more verticals or applications coming out of that. And the third one, again, I don't have a name, but Web3 requires a lot of computational power. And the first one, generative AI, requires an enormous amount of computational power. I think we need to build a data center 100,000 times larger than what we see today. I don't know how we can do it, but there will be software solution, there will be hardware solution, probably a combination of the two to address this need. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for your questions, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.